Arnold Schwarzenegger was the last Republican governor in California. Ever since 2011, Democrats have controlled the governorship. Now, Daniel Mercuri is trying to be the first Republican since Arnold Schwarzenegger to win a gubernatorial election in California. I'm joined now by Daniel Mercuri, who is running for California governor. He ran in the 25th district, congressional district race in the 2020 election. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it, and yeah, thank you for seeking me out too. It's good to know that my name is starting to get around and around the state. So I appreciate this opportunity.
Yes. So before we get into your policies, what inspired your decision to run for California governor?
I mean, ultimately, this really came down to the fact that this is not the country I fought for. And I grew up in California, and the state is truly just falling into the swamp deeper and deeper, so much so that I see people leaving. My family, half of my family actually just moved out of the state. They couldn't handle the policies anymore. Very close friends of my family had small businesses. They have all moved out. And it's really very disheartening. And I really thought I was done running for office after I ran for Congress in the 25th district. I really felt like Mike Garcia he's a good voice in our area. He and I share similar ideas. We've actually become good friends. He even asked me if he could use some of my policies. And I said, Mike, it's all for you. Take it, whatever you want. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to, make some sort of name for myself. I care about my community. I care about where I live. I love this state. And I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm not leaving it. I'm here to stay and to fight the good fight. I'm not going to let the leftist mentality, overrun this beautiful state, this golden state. And that's really just kind of what really sort of pulled me back into politics again. I love what I do. Don't get me wrong. I have small businesses of my own. I have a small clientele. And, I love what this state has provided for me. I mean, this is also where I proposed to my wife, and I've got a beautiful family now. I don't want to leave. And the people of the state, I mean, we are such a multicultural, diverse state. Why would I leave? But I see why. I understand it. And I'm ready to fight back and bring it back.
Do you feel like running for this seat is almost like a calling of sorts?
I don't have any desire to be a career politician. We talk about systemic racism in our country, but really I beg to differ and say we have systemic career politicians. That needs to end. And it is that systemic career politicians that are constantly just out for self-preservation. And I have no interest in voting for those kinds of people. I mean, really, if anything President Trump did, was he showed us just how many swamp rats are in our government throughout the country and every state, especially here in California. I mean, we've got a lot of them that are coming out of here. So this isn't a process for me to go into, becoming a career politician. I think that's the worst thing. It was never designed to be that way. And our forefathers set it up that way so that people could serve their community. But they weren't designed. It wasn't designed for people to stay in, like Dianne Feinstein, who's been in, what is she now, 80, in her mid 80s? Nancy Pelosi has been in for 18 terms. At some point in time, step down, move aside. And even when I ran for Congress, I said that, I was going to fight for term limits. And I wasn't going to just give lip service, that if I couldn't pass or get the bill passed, I would, I would formalize a self-proclamation and give it to the people of my district that no matter what, I would step down, because I wasn't doing this because I want to make a name for myself. I want to get rich. No, our representatives are supposed to ensure greater sovereignty and civil liberties. And all laws, all the legislation that is passed has to harmonize with the state constitution and more so the supreme laws of the land. And that's not happening. And I want to, they should be able to create laws and then enjoy the fruits of their labor because they know they're getting out. They're going to go right back into the private sector again, right? They're going back to being a civilian. But they don't want to get out because they're all taking a handout. And I was exposed to a lot of the corruption when I ran for Congress. I don't know what it was like for all the other politicians. I have no idea. but I know what I endured. And there was a ton of favoritism. There are a lot of handouts. A lot of these super PACs and lobbyists and unions, and they got a hold of my private information to try to sweeten the deal. And that's why when I first ran for Congress, I said, you know what, I can't be bought. I won't be bought, and my vote's not for sale. I will never sell out. I'm not a perfect human being. I'm not a saint. I don't pretend to be. And I need people to understand that if you get into bed with these people, you're trapped. And a lot of people don't understand, why all of a sudden we thought we voted for somebody good and we thought they were going to do great things, and all of a sudden they turn their back on their constituents. That's why. It's because they got bad out early, and it happens early the minute you pull papers. So there's a danger when you run for office is you have to stand on strong principles, and then you have to be willing to get out. So if I become the governor, I have no desire to try to become, go into office somewhere else, to become a senator, a congressman, or try to become the president of the United States. That's not my desire. My desire is to fight for our state, set things right, and give the state back to the people, because that's where it belongs. Small government, so people can stay in control. The government should fear the people, not the other way around.
Let's go into your policy platform and your beliefs and what you're running on. And we're going to start with the issue maybe of this whole entire news cycle, the COVID-19 pandemic. The LA Times reported yesterday on Wednesday that the county scientists have said that 1 in 3 residents, or the equivalent of roughly 3 million people, have contracted the virus in LA County. And, we're seeing rising cases in California. How would you reduce the amount of cases in California?
This is a really great question. Let me first start out by saying, for every doctor that says that this pandemic is, it's horrendous, wear the mask, get the vaccine, I've got another 5 doctors that say the complete opposite. And this is the problem. And what's happened is our medical community has become politicized. So one of my first steps is to unpoliticize our medical community. Number 2, I cannot tell you how many nurses I have spoken to. A lot of people are like, well, where are you, Daniel? I don't see you at the rallies. I am at the rallies, and I'm speaking to people, and I'm showing my support for those people who are hosting those rallies. I am there talking to people, nurses and doctors, police officers, business owners. I'm going up and down the state, talking to them intimately, one-on-one. And the stories that are being pumped out are not the same things that the mainstream media and a lot of these, big newspapers are pumping out to the people. There's a problem here. And so I have a problem with when I hear, there's a new strand. I don't deny it. And I don't deny the fact that, COVID is real. But one thing is for certain is that, you have a 99.8% chance of survivability. Well, that's better than the flu. So when I talk to these, and I'm getting these reports now, and I actually have, a lot of reports from the opposing narrative, it makes me have to take a stand back and look at this from a critical point of view. So if I'm to be governor, I'm going to make sure that we stop incentivizing our hospitals. 2, a lot of the nurses are saying that they're having to count and recount and triple count one person because of maybe a failed test, or because of the RNA sequence, or because of the cycles that they lowered or they raised. And there's a lot of questions that are starting to spread out, but they're getting suppressed because they're not being reported. So when I go out there and I do my personal research, I go out there and I'm literally sitting down with nurses and doctors that are telling me the exact opposite. That is something that needs to be presented to the people in a fair and concise way that is unbiased, so that every community, every county can make up their own decision. And I firmly believe that, why is it that one state is doing amazing? If I look at South Dakota and I listen to the governor and I see what their reports are bringing in, and we look at over here, listen, viruses and bacteria and all kinds of things, they all react differently to different environments. What Gavin Newsom has done is he's kind of done a one size fits all. That's not going to work, because viruses and bacteria in certain areas, such as in salt water, salt air, or heat or cold, they all react differently. We need to go at the county level, and we need to break it down, and we need to allow us to, remove this sort of incentive that the more cases they get, the more the hospital can claim, federal aid or federal funding or money to their hospital. That's an incentive to inflate the numbers. So now that there is this disconnect, then it's caused doubt. So then what I want to do is remove that doubt and start this process over. Let's get real numbers in here, because it's not happening. And so I have a hard time swallowing this pill. I'm not denying that people have died. I'm not denying that people, didn't get it. What I'm saying is there is an incentive here, and anytime you incentivize a process and politicize it, we're going to get inflated numbers, and that is definitely what is happening. So this needs to be exposed.
Do you believe in the report I just said?
I believe in part. For me, because I haven't read 100% of all of this. There's so much information on COVID right now, and there's so much opposing narratives to it. It's not as easy for me to just go, oh yeah, I'm going to take that at face value. I actually take these reports and this research, and I go to doctors. I sit down. I've sat down with heart surgeons. I've sat down with neurologists. I've talked to ER nurses and doctors, and they will be honest with me. And they're off record right now, but they're like, hey, if you're running for governor, man, here's what I think. Here's a report that I'm putting out to my colleagues, but I can't get it past certain channels. Maybe you can. So this is the stuff that needs to be out there. So no, I don't deny the numbers, but at the same time, I don't deny what the reports that you're putting out, that you're telling, that you said that you've read. But what I'm saying is those numbers right now, for me, they're in doubt. There is a question to it, and we need to clarify that, because there is a panic that we need to bring down so that we understand that this is all being politicized. We need to get real numbers, and it's not adding up.
In terms of when we look past the infection rates on your and we talk about businesses on your website, on your platform, you say, one of the first things you say in terms of solutions, you say, allow all businesses, both small and great, to reopen, and grant those companies the freedom to decide how they want to handle a mask mandate in their buildings and with their customers, granting them the right to coordinate how they want their employees to conduct business for those with weakened immune systems. How will you make sure that companies are protecting employees with weakened immune systems?
Well, again, this gets into that same narrative. If you look at Disneyland, Disneyland met the CEOs. They retrofitted out the theme park, and they did an amazing job. And they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to ensure that they were going to meet all the requirements. If they are meeting standards, if businesses already have a criteria, which has already been pumped out when we first went on the first lockdown, a lot of businesses right away were saying, okay, we get this, we want to help out our communities, let's see what we can do. And they got from the health departments an outline, and even some businesses were required to sort of make it up as they go, because the health department didn't actually know what would work for certain businesses, how they function, whether they were a gym or if they were a restaurant. It wasn't a one size fit all. So they did admit to that. How do we go around and we already have the health department running around right now, giving out fines with things that, right now, some of these businesses like restaurants that are having outdoor, they've subjected themselves to being outdoors. And now they're making claim that, that it's increasing the spread. But then there's already a number of lawsuits that have already won right now with these restaurants, all the way from San Diego now up to LA, that are showing that there is no actual evidence that has proven that people are spreading this. So if businesses are willing to handle the mask mandate as they see fit per their business for what they're doing, then that's what we need to do. And the health department has already admitted that there are some areas that they're just not sure about, but they won't publicize that. You have to dig for that. So that's how you're going to have to make sure that there's some formalized check-in, that they can verify that they're doing it. But again, what we're talking about is eliminating the ability for someone to be free because of these unconstitutional laws, and it rides a very fine line. So one of the things that we can do is we have to first free them up to let them do what they can do, so that we can see as a state, each business, what's working and what's not. But right now, again, we're back to this one size fits all, and that's not going to cut it.
In terms of your other policy plans, you say provide small businesses a zero tax and is exemption incentives. Wait, provide small businesses with a zero tax and exemption incentives, for 5 years to those businesses that were forced to close. If the coronavirus pandemic continues to rage on, do you think that you'll have to extend past 5 years?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. For any business to, whenever, I don't know if you've ever run a business, but anybody who has a business, you know, I'll tell you right now, one of the problems is that it takes about 5 years for a business to get going, to have organic growth. So with the pandemic, a lot of these businesses are completely shut down permanently, or have furloughed, or are on just hold waiting. And they're spending all of their savings to just keep their business afloat, alive, you know, or maybe just to keep the lights on, but they can't operate yet. And I know a lot of businesses that are doing that right now. Yeah, if we have to extend that, then yeah, we're going to have to extend that. The government doesn't necessarily need the money. In order for you to have any good, strong, healthy economy, small businesses have always been the backbone of any great economy. So we're going to need to bring that back, and governments is just we're going to have to starve the government. That's my slogan: starve the government, feed the people, give the money back to the people, let them get, allocate that money out to what they need so that they can regrow their business, and then give them an incentive until they're finally back up to par. It's going to take, it's not going to be easy. But we have to do it. Tough decisions are going to be made. Right now, you know, we've got Gavin Newsom with $4.5 billion that's going to go towards, you know, green new cars, and only $570 million is going to go to small businesses. That's enough for maybe one county of small businesses that have been furloughed or completely closed. And then who's going to buy these new cars when there's no jobs? And then we got Biden that's going to let in, you know, and grant asylum to 11 million illegal immigrants. Well, where are they going to work? We've already got tax-paying citizens that have now, you know, can't find jobs. So what are we going to do? So this is the problem, and I desperately feel like we need to give them an incentive and starve the government. Enough with these closed doors, back-ended handshakes, you know, that out of the sight of the eyes of the people, and they add pork to these bills that nobody's going to read the Senate floor notes. Who does that? Nobody. They're expecting our representatives to actually come in and do this and take care of the people the right way legally, but they're not doing that. And this is how we're going to have to do it. And they may not like it, but that's tough. I'm not a friend of the government. I'm a friend of the people. I hate to say this, but I think I got to plug in my computer.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. It's okay.
Can I do that real quick?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry. I thought it was plugged in, but I got to get real quick. 1 second. All right. Are you still there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can. I so apologize for that.
No worries.
I just saw this. I saw this massive drop my battery. All right, so moving on.
All right, let's transition now to healthcare policy. That's one of the biggest issues that we've been hearing about in terms of the pandemic. You say in terms of your healthcare policy, one of the first things that you suggest is to control prescription drug costs by capping the pharmaceutical companies on how much they can charge and prevent them from doing business in our state unless they agree to release the drug patents in a more reasonable amount of time to the public. You just said earlier that, businesses should, um, like they should be the ones monitoring, which employees have weakened immune systems. Here, you talk about control from the government. Why do you believe in government control on pharmaceutical companies for this issue, but not government control on the COVID-19 business issue?
Well, yeah. So this is a bit of a catch-22. The reason why I say this is pharmaceutical companies actually are the ones who sort of dictate what our policymakers are doing. So it is a catch-22. Why would we allow for small businesses, which are the backbone of any strong, prosperous economy, and then we have pharmaceutical companies? Pharmaceutical companies have way too much control, very much like the big tech. So really what government is supposed to do is break up these sort of monopolies and these control that sort of puts a noose around the people's neck. So I'm actually glad that you asked that because, for instance, I've talked about vaccinations. When you talk about vaccinations, a lot of them come from, big pharma, right? Everyone has to take these. But the problem with it is when you look at the 15th and the Fifth Amendment, you look at the fact that it says that all people have, we all have equal protection under the law. The problem with that is that you don't have equal protection under the law when the opposing side has immunity. So Congress created I think it's the 1986 Vaccine Injury Act, right, to protect the pharmaceutical companies. So how does the other side, who maybe has a negative reaction or is hospitalized through a vaccine, get any justice? They don't. And so what happened was Congress created a trust fund for all of our tax money to go into that trust. And then whenever there's a lawsuit, they created a vaccine court. And depending on the injury, that money comes out of the trust to the people. But we paid for that. So there's no incentive for the pharmaceutical companies to provide any true efficacy behind their vaccines or their drugs. So now when we look at the drugs, it's not that government is trying to control them. It's that government is trying to eliminate their control over the people because they dictate and our policymakers, because they line their pockets. I know this because, again, I had people approach me to try to sweeten the deal if I was to win for Congress. It starts right away. And it's hard if you're somebody coming from sort of a grassroots upbringing and somebody offers you millions of dollars, even to lose. So it's a catch-22. Small businesses provide, more of a free economy, good competition. It allows for growth. These are the things that small businesses provide. When you look at big pharma, you look at pharmaceutical companies and the amount of money that they charge, it's sort of called to be an indentured slave to their pricings. There's got to be a balance here. And this is one of my proposals to that balance.
In any way, do you feel like you're going against the free market values that you hear Republicans talk about? I mean, you're running as a Republican candidate, and this doesn't seem like to be a free market solution to this issue.
For healthcare, well, another thing that I've been looking into right now is an HSA. So I don't know if that's a hugely popular idea among the Republicans. I've been talking to other governors, other representatives from other states, into this health savings account. So when you look at an HSA, what that does is it does allow for healthy competition. It does allow for a more of a free market where some of these huge conglomerate companies have cornered the market and insurance companies on what we can choose and what we can pick. And so really it's not a free market. I am for free market, and free market allows for competition. It allows for new ideas, and without sort of cornering everybody that they have to pick one particular thing or another, and that's all they get. They only get A and B. That's not a free market. So a free market it allows for new, fresh ideas, new businesses, competition from out of state as well. So that's something I've also proposed too, that we should allow for other insurance companies to compete against others here in our own state. We do on some level, but there's a lot of red tape. And then a health savings account also allows people to take control of their own health care. Whereas when you have to go into health insurance, you have to ask and request if say you need a heart surgery, or you need a transplant, or you need something that's been nagging you for 20 years, but maybe it doesn't fit under their policy. A health savings account will allow for them to do that because you know your body better than anybody else. But when you have health insurances and economy, other groups that are saying you can't do it, that negatively affects, someone's health and mental well-being and physical well-being. So how do you free this up? What we have right now is not a free market. So yes, I am for free market, but we have to allow, in order for to have that, you have to have competition. That's a free market. And then you allow for it to do what it does best, be free.
Last question on healthcare before we move on to other parts of your platform. Before we go on to other parts of the platform, if single payer healthcare, single payer government healthcare may be something that Democrats push in the California State Assembly and the California State Senate, if the State Senate and the State Assembly push for and pass, if single payer healthcare passes both the State Assembly and the State Senate, as a governor, would you veto that bill?
Without knowing all the details in it right now, at the moment, I probably would. But at the moment, too, it's tough. I need more of the notes on that, and I only know a little bit about it. So, I'm okay with. I don't know everything about everything. Right now, I just need to make sure that if it corners them, if it enables them to actually having fair health care in a way that they can actually afford, that also doesn't add more on the people where it's a socialized medicine, then that's a problem because other people are paying for that debt. Also, too, a lot of these bills, too, also support illegal immigration. Now, everybody has a right as a human to have, to be treated and, to health care. But when the American people are already broken and, their banks are already just, bending over backwards to pay for somebody else's debt, it becomes a problem for that person. So at the moment, I'm not going to say 100% yes. I need more details right now on that particular issue. If it does pass and I was to veto it, it would have to, again, it would have to allow for fair competition. There would have to be other options, and it could not make other taxpayers indentured to an increased debt. So that would be the only way. And again, everything has to be constitutional. Everything has to be allowed for people to maintain their sovereignty, their freedoms, without being enslaved to the almighty dollar. And that's really what's going on with a lot of these bills that are being passed without looking in depth into some of the floor notes at this moment in time.
We're going to transition now to your platform regarding your abortions platform. You say outright on your website, I do not support abortions with the exception of rape or medical complications where both the mother and the child are threatened. You go on with a bill proposal, and one of the things you say is to close down and remove Planned Parenthood's ability to operate in the state of California. There will be some who there will be, there's an argument to be had here that Planned Parenthood deals with other issues besides abortion. Why would you want to close down Planned Parenthood when they deal with other issues besides abortions?
Well, I'm not going to get into, all the details about what's already been out there, all the research, all the, investigations that's gone on with Planned Parenthood, and of course, the illegal selling of, a lot of these, aborted baby parts and so on. This mentality for me is, first and foremost, is because I heavily believe in God, and when I believe in the Bible and Jesus is my Lord and Savior. I believe when he tells me, he knew you, when you were in the womb. That right there, and me being a father, it turns my gut to know that, we look at the East Coast and they're passing bills that it's okay that, they're aborting, babies, even outside the womb, still in the placenta and still in the sac. I can't do this. It's too hard. And so Planned Parenthood had pushed for those bills. They pushed for that. So they're not for life. They're for an agenda. And a lot of the agenda has to do with these baby parts, the aborted baby parts that are being sold off, some to the black market. This is why they want this bill, because of what they're doing illegally or what they're doing behind closed doors. And, I've had people bring things to me that is just disgusting. So, and a lot of this information is already out there. That's why I say I would remove it. There are a lot of other foundations that are out there right now that, as I've said on my website, I've talked to, sex trafficking victims, and some of these women, and one in particular told me, and I put it on my site, is that, she said that when she was raped, when she was, I think she said if she was 12 or 13 years old, she was left impregnated. And she said that if she was not permitted to have an abortion, that she would have committed suicide. So that led me to understanding that, I wasn't just now trying to fight for the unborn child. Now I also have to fight for these victims that don't want anything to do with that child, and it's not their fault. But Planned Parenthood doesn't really actually adhere to, the spiritual healing, the physical healing, the mental healing. They say they do, but I've listened into some of these tapes where people have gone in and done underground investigations, and they have pulled out, audio that where they're sitting there trying to push these people, these victims, into having the abortion, rather than trying to nurture them about how they feel, what they're going through, what they can do to kind of help them heal. They're not in there for that. They say they are, but they're not.
Where are these tapes?
I've had people brought them to me, and they're right now they're putting cases together. These reporters, these investigative journalists. That's the interesting thing too. When you run for office, you do meet investigative journalists. You meet young journalists that are really trying to get to the truth. A lot of them see the bias that the mainstream media has been pumping out. They can see right through the lies. And people have brought these things to my opinion, to my attention. And this is why I said I've sat down. I have sat down with sex trafficking victims. I have sat down with rape victims. I have sat down with these people who they're adults now, but there's stories of what they've gone through, and really what's happening in the state legislature too, where we're not out there protecting the child. We're protecting the people who are buying the children. We're not out there, really doing everything we can to ensure that our youth are absolutely at the forefront of protecting their growth. And instead, what we're doing is we're opening up the doors to sexual promiscuity within our youth and engaging in sexual promiscuity with adults. And then, of course, the Planned Parenthood is allowing, is pushing and pumping these things out where they're steering them to have the abortion, and they want more of it. And these audio tapes are that I'm listening to. They're not my tapes, but it's what's being brought to me. And people are asking me, "Would you stop this?" Yes, I will. I will do everything I can to stop this.
Okay. Well, which type of investigative journalists are bringing you these tapes?
Well, again, that's for them. That's not for me to go out here and tell you who they are. I'm not going to go out there. This is their research, and these are the people that are going to come out there, and they're going to do what they can to do to bring it to the forefront of the people. They're going to put it up on their websites. They're going to put it out there. They're going to write about it, and they're going to release the tapes on their own timing. But again, they bring it to my attention. They ask me, "Hey, is this something that you support?" No, I don't support it. I don't support it at all. So when are they going to do it? I don't know. I just know that, again, that these are things that are brought to my attention, and these are some of the reasons why I'm stepping out in front to say enough. And even if I didn't hear some of these things, I have enough, of my own research and talking to people, knowing that they don't support Planned Parenthood, and they've done their research, and so on and so. I mean, it just goes on. It's a rabbit hole, and I don't support it. But there are other groups that I say on there that do support, the spirituality and healing and mental growth and mental healing and physical healing of these people, and, to try to help them to incentivize to keep the child. But if they don't, I've said on there too that, unless they fall within this victim range, then they have a period of time to have the abortion. I don't like it, but then I don't want that person going out trying to commit suicide either. So there's this very, very tough balance that even I have to keep, that though I would say no 100%, I also have to adhere to the struggles that they're feeling because they were raped.
Okay, well, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. You said that, and hopefully I'm quoting you correctly. You said that Planned Parenthood is promoting sexual promiscuity? No.
They're not. Our government right now, are allowing for condoms to be, at once, in our schools, in our junior highs. I'm sorry, that's a promotion of that. You don't do that. They're educating people on, it wasn't sex education, but now it's talking about, they're getting into how to have sex, and, talking to these parents, they pull their kids out, that their kids are in, teenagers now, or they're in 8th grade. That's not what we're supposed to be doing, not in this respect. And so it's encouraging, it's encouraging sexual promiscuity. When I grew up, it was, chastity. It was wait till you get married. It was, stop, don't leer, keep your eyes straight, eyes up at the woman's eyes, stop looking down. We're not doing that now. What happened to that? So times have truly changed, especially within our government. When we talk about child trafficking, I fail to understand why it's not across the board to bring about some of the most harsh punishment to anybody that wants to buy a child, or even, ends up, or is the trafficker themselves, the seller of these children. And when they get caught, they still get released. I'm sorry, that baffles my mind that we don't have a across the board when some of these laws protect the buyers or they protect the sellers. Why? And I don't know why. I'm trying to figure it out, and I've been trying to dig into it. And it's a tight ring. This all sort of kind of plays into each other.
What do you mean by tight ring?
It's a tight ring. It's what I mean by this is it's hard to get down into that underworld, to get people to come out and reveal, why it's happening, who's truly involved, within the government. And yeah, some of this sound conspiratorial, absolutely. But then when you look at some of the floor notes, if you look at some of our state legislature, why they're not passing these bills that would protect our children at all costs. There's no excuse whatsoever. And so I'm not gonna wave on it. I'm not here. I'm not a politician. That was one of the things too. I'm not here to be nice about these subject matters. No. Our children are our future, and I firmly believe that. When you become a parent, you start to become appalled as to why certain representatives don't push these bills to the forefront to stop it at all costs. And these bills sort of allow for wiggle room for some of these people not to have to register as a sex offender or just go to jail for a much longer period of time. Why aren't the laws harsher? They're not. And so we have like SB 145 passed by Senator, I think, of Scott Weiner. Right. So instead of him equalizing out the law, where he says, hey, it's not fair that, LGBTQ plus people who engage with sex with a minor, who say they're 24 and the person is 14, they don't have to register as a sex offender, or they have to register as a sex offender. Whereas a straight male who has sex with a 14-year-old and gets her pregnant, he doesn't have to register as a sex offender. I would agree with him on one front. Yes, the law isn't fair there. It should be fair across the board, period. So then we should say, no, I'm for it. Then if that straight male has sex with a 14-year-old and he says 24 years old and he has sex with a 14-year-old, no, he should have to register as a sex offender. But Scott Weiner didn't do that. He released the law and says, well, I don't want anybody who's in the LGBTQ plus community to have to register. I just
want to get back to the question that I was asking. I said, you said under ring. I said, what do you mean by that? And then I asked, what do you mean by that when you said under ring? And then you said,
oh no, no. There's a tight ring. There's a tight
ring. Excuse me. Wait, you said tight ring. I said, what do you mean by that? And you said it sounds that you were going on with the explanation. It says that, and you said that it sounds conspiratorial. I don't understand.
In other words, what I'm saying is that there are people who will not release information that have it. They're either scared or they're in a tight group of people that have information, but they're not willing to release it, or they know who's involved. But
how
there's
do you know this?
Again, when people come to me, I'm going to say this right now so you can keep this on there. People come to me. They reach out to me. I get phone calls. I get strangers that come up to me. If I have a meet and greet, if I get an email, people want to speak to me. They want me to know these things because they're saying, hey, you're running for California governor. Would you put a stop to this? I've got an audio recording. I've got a video recording. Please do not share it. Here's my information. If we support you, or if the people that I know support you, will you stop this? You want me to go on record and tell you who they are. I'm not going to do that because, again, out of respect, if somebody brings some information and they say, please keep me out of the side of the eye of the public right now, we're doing research. We just want to know, where do you stand on this? This is why I know these things. And that's why I said, does it sound conspiratorial? Absolutely. Am I making this up? No, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to make this stuff up.
Okay, we're going to move on to your immigration platform. You say that no American taxes should be paying for any illegal alien criminal. You go on to say that that to remove You say continue to remove all criminals irrelevant of the crime who are already in our jail facilities and deport them to their own uh, country's prison. You say, and then what you do say, no American taxes should be paying for that uh, illegal alien criminal by removing by removing uh, undocumented immigrants, illegal immigrants. Do you have to increase the amount of taxes to complete that process?
No. So again, whenever the people have to pay for something that they really shouldn't be, um, it's really just it costs like $30,000, I believe, for every prisoner in the state at a state prison that the people have to pay for. That money alone would automatically decrease because we would not be sustaining those people in the prisons. So when you go, like I took a tour of our county jails and some of our state prisons, and I encourage people to do that so they can kind of learn a little bit more about how they function and how they work. We pay for that. So if you're an illegal immigrant and you were here and you committed a crime, we have to pay our state tax. And a lot of our money, it keeps people fed, clothed, they get medicine. And, of course, we've got the facility and the law enforcement. So, for the security. So we pay for that. But it costs more when we keep incarcerating also illegal immigrants who've committed these crimes. Why aren't we transferring them? So does it cost money to transfer them? We're already paying for that. So we're not cooperating our state. We are a sanctuary state. Last time I checked in the Constitution, no, we're not permitted to do that. We have sanctuary cities all up and down. LA is one of the biggest. So no, it's time to get rid of these criminals who are in our prisons right now. That will also alleviate the taxpayers from having to pay for those people who've committed crimes in our country that aren't even supposed to be here in the first place. So I stand firmly on that. And that alone is not going to cost the people money. If anything, it's going to allow for a reprieve. I think you asked something else, but I'm sorry.
So wait, say it one more time.
I thought there was something else to the question too, and I think maybe I lost my train of thought.
Okay.
Or did I answer your question? I answered your question.
Yeah. Yes. Let's go to something that you say here. Work in conjunction with all of ICE in removing extreme illegal alien criminals. How do you classify extreme?
Well, I think a misdemeanor or somebody who gets a traffic ticket versus somebody who murdered, raped, engaged in assault and battery on multiple levels, that would be the differences. Yeah, I get that people come here illegally, seeking asylum, seeking a new life. I don't fault for anybody wanting to come here because they want to get out of the problems and the darkness in their country that they're experiencing. So I can appreciate that. I'm not for per se ripping families apart. But if you're a hardened criminal, I think most of us, including our laws, have differentiated between, why we have, an infraction and misdemeanor and felons. So a hardened criminal, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know that if you've murdered people, you've engaged in kidnapping, you're a hardened criminal. And if they're in our prisons right now, why are we keeping them? They need to be extradited. They need to be shipped out of our country today, yesterday. So, if you're somebody who came here illegally, you've abided by the law aside from coming here illegally, an infraction or a ticket or something like that, you're not a criminal. You're working hard, you're paying taxes. I'm not going to go hunt those people down. Those people, and it should be on a case-by-case basis with some of the immigrants that are here. Some of them are here illegally. I'm working on some structure on how we can actually take care of some of these people that have been paying their taxes, haven't broken the laws, they were forced to leave because of what was going on in their country. I get that, but we can't keep letting them in too. We can't keep letting everybody in without closing down and putting a moratorium on our borders. It doesn't work that way. It's a floodgate. We got to close it down and then adhere to who's here right now. And so we definitely need to take care of hardened criminals and get them out of our state, get them out of our country. And those who have been law abiding, we need to get them in and see if we can't get them to civic duty classes so that they know what it means to be an American. Our laws here in the state of California as well as the country, and help them to continue to be good contributors to our societies. So we definitely, that's why I separate that and I say, hardened extreme illegal criminals.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna finish the last part of this broadcast with the last issue. You have a platform called something on your platform called Digital Bill of Rights. You say that protect, or no, you say, excuse me, I got it right here. Yes, prevent big tech from interfering in local, state, or national elections with blatant censorship. What do you mean by that?
Well, look what just happened right now. It's funny is that I wrote that. I wrote this a few months ago, speaking to lawmakers and constitutional lawyers. And this was a big one, was we need a digital bill of rights. And now they're talking about it at the federal level. And this was one of the topics that was brought up, but why not a state? The state can still do this as well, right? We have a constitution, we have a state constitution. If we have a digital bill of rights, we need a state digital bill of rights. And we're looking at big tech that interferes in local, state, and national elections. I believe that they totally do this. If you look at people that say, well, if you don't want to be on, Twitter or Facebook, leave and go to another social platform. Well, people did. They went in Parler. So what did they do? They cornered the market on free speech. So Google, threatened Apple. Apple threatened Parler, and then Parler said, okay, fine, don't you can still download our app on their main site or use the browser. But then they went to Amazon, and so that's where all the servers were hosting. If you don't believe that to be censorship, then we are on a different level of understanding of what censorship is, right? I'm not saying you per se. I'm just saying people in general. I'm not trying to insult you, but I firmly believe that that is blatant censorship, right? You're not allowing the American people or anybody to express an opposing opinion or opposing narrative or a different viewpoint, right? That's the beautiful thing about the First Amendment. You have every right to say what you want to say, right, without inciting violence. But now this is becoming a splitting of the hair, and so we have big tech right now that are starting to put up notifications if something they feel is a fact check that needs to be fact checked. And who are these people that are fact checking, right? So now we're saying, well, we just want to stop hate speech. I appreciate that. I appreciate what that means. However, what you consider hate speech may not be something that I consider, right? It rides a very fine line. I may not like what you say, but in this country, you have a right to say it, and I have a right not to listen. I don't have to like it. I don't have to agree with it, but you have a right to say it. And as a veteran, I fought for that. I fought for you to have that. So you don't have to like anything that I'm saying tonight. A lot of people may not agree with it, but I have a right to say it. And big tech doesn't have a right to silence it, delete my videos, and hiding it under Section 230. And the whole point of them having Section 230, which is why we need a digital bill of rights, is because they didn't want to be sued or held liable. And I studied Section 230. They don't want to be liable for everybody else's, phrases or words or something that they put up. They were on top of, copyright infringement. They were on top of, crimes that were happening and they were being posted up. This is good that, there's that boundary there. And it was because they didn't want to create all these community guidelines that they now have now, because they didn't want to be liable. But now they're acting as a publisher, which is in violation of that. So this is why Section 230 is, they didn't want to be liable for being a publisher. They didn't. Section 230 doing it. Now they are controlling what you're saying. Now they are coming up with community guidelines, and they're doing exactly what they said they didn't want to do. This is why you have to remove Section 230. But that's not going to happen. But maybe if we come up with a digital bill of rights, that'll prevent this. And I think we're going to go in this direction. I don't know how soon or how fast, but with my administration, if I'm to be elected here in the state of California, that's going to be put right up at the front.
Last question regarding this topic, and you mentioned it in your answer a little bit. You said that, the argument will be that these are private companies. They get to, control what they, who gets to be on the platform. Isn't that true? Like, I mean, it is true, right? That since these private companies, they have every right to control who can come on the platform, who can not be on the platform. And if someone wants to engage in free speech, they have every right to, say it on the street corner or in some other venue, but it's ultimately the private company's choice, right?
Yes. So that's what Section 230 was because of the fact that they wanted to be an open platform. And again, that's key. Open platform. It was for everybody. They didn't want to engage in politics. So when Section 2, when YouTube in the early stages and MySpace and Facebook, they were starting to get sued, they went to our representatives to fight so that they wouldn't be sued, because they didn't want to basically lose all their money to be able to keep employees working and stuff. So they needed some sort of protection. So yes, are they a private company? Of course they are. Do they have a right to limit some things? Of course. But when you say that you want to be an open platform for everybody and you want the protection of Section 230 without having to come up with community guidelines so that they're not held liable, then there's no reason for them to have all these community guidelines. But that's changed. So again, this is why I say it's a catch-22. This is why. So basically, I guess in an easy way to say it, they get their cake and eat it too, right? And this is, I think, they're starting to show their abuse, and it's showing that they have completely monopolized this area. These big techs, basically Google, YouTube, it's a monopoly, right? It's not supposed to be that way. We're not supposed to have monopolies. And if you say you're going to be an open platform for everyone, then you have to maintain that. But now you're only open if you agree with certain narratives, and you got to be okay with our fact checking. And we don't want to hear that you're saying that the sky is falling, because that's not true. Listen, people have a right to say the sky is falling. I don't have to believe it. That's why they wanted this protection. They have it now, but now they're abusing it. So yeah, they get their cake and eat it too. And I am all about trying to create digital bill of rights so that now if they're protected, well, then the people need to be protected too.
Two more questions before we end the broadcast. What is your strategy to win this election in 2022?
Well, I mean, are you talking about what I'm planning on doing as far as going out, meeting the people, things like that, or are you talking more about my message, or both?
Both.
Well, as far as on the going out and meeting people, I mean, right now, because of COVID has definitely made this. It's going to make this race incredibly interesting because of the fact that I've already encountered in doing some meet and greets in some of the cities going up north. Past San Francisco, they're scared of COVID, and they're very hesitant on having a certain amount of people come and meet in even in an open forum, even an outside arena. They're very hesitant because they don't want to be part of any potential spread, or they're just afraid that they're going to be held liable or something. So it's really made this kind of a very interesting race for me. So I'm still doing that, but I have to downscale it. So I'm going to try to hit smaller communities in a smaller way. Maybe be around more of the mom and pop shop areas, limit it to RSVPing. And then, of course, I'm doing a lot of digital work. So I've got a good small team right now. We just started my own podcast called Defy the Lie. I'm trying to cover and just saturate as many social media platforms as I can. I think right now, I've got Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, BitChute. I did have Parler, Rumble. We're getting into MeWe now, and a few other ones. So it's really that's my physical plan, and of course emails and texts and so forth. So and some ads, some video ads, and newspaper, local papers. We're going to try to hit as many local papers as we can. And as far as my message is concerned, I stand firm with we need to starve the government. The government doesn't have any reason in reaching areas of our lives that they have no business being in. There's too much government overreach right now. They have too much power, and it should not be this way. The people are supposed to be in control of their government, and that is not what's happening. And it's hard for people to see this, and I get that, especially if you don't know the laws, if you don't know the Constitution. I mean, how many people read their Constitution? I have to constantly read it daily, so I know that whatever it is that I'm writing on here harmonizes with the supreme laws of the land. And then when I look at the state constitution, that thing is I need to break out, my law books, and I've got to call up, my friends that are lawyers and say, what am I reading here? Break it down for me and make it simplified. And our laws were not designed to be so ambiguous and so legalistic. They were supposed to be simple. And I want to get back to simplicity. And that is my message is another way. There are so many ways that I want to starve the government, to feed the people, and to put them back into power so that the government is in fear of the people, not the other way around. And remove the politician out of politics. We've got, again, we have systemic career politicians that is at the core of our issues in every state across the country. I am not here to increase that. We need to stop hiring politicians and start putting in people who love their community, who love their state, who aren't about trying to enrich their own lives, but to enrich the others. You have to be a servant of the people. And we have too many representatives that are out there right now that are coming out rich. How did that happen? They all live, especially here in California, they're all living in $3.5 million homes. How did that happen? Did they just all get lucky at the, at the stock trades? No, that's not what happened. They all have their hand out. It's not supposed to be that way. And so they are playing politics and word games and changing the words in things. I do not stand for this. This is what you get with a politician. And you hear the phrase corporate America and corporate California. Last time I checked, we're not a corporation, we're a people. And that is what my administration is going to stand on. And that is the message that I'm going to fight to get out there.
Last question. Is there anything that you would like to add before we end?
Yes, if anybody would like to support my campaign, they can go to my website at danielforcalgovernor.com. That's DANIEL for FOR, Cal, CAL, governor.com. You can also type in Daniel Mercuri for governor.com. It'll take you to the same website. And, if anybody wants to join my team, I do have on my website, join the team, contact under the contact section. And, I'm looking for anybody that wants to join me, especially during COVID. If you want to join my team, you do not have to feel like, you've got to meet. We've got, plenty of cameras and, we can talk over Zoom, email correspondence. I'm happy to work with anybody that wants to be a part of my team. It is growing, and I'm looking forward to getting this message out there. And I know a lot of people, have already asked me how they can join. This is another way that you can do it. So if you can't do it physically, but you want to be a part of it, whether you're up north or down south, I'm all for getting people on my team across the state.
Thank you so much for joining the program, Daniel. That's a wrap here on Happs TV. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Have a great night, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.